Table. I'm your host, Nechesa Kimberly. Um, I know I've been promising you guests, but I figured I would keep doing this by myself because it helps with confidence. It boosts my communication skills, it boosts my morale, and it also pushes me to learn more about the subject that I am talking about. If you're new here, we talk about leadership through mentorship, and we base it on the pillars that have surrounded leaders for a while and the mantles that they are passing on from generation to the next. Um, Please pull up a chair and let's get this discussion rolling. Last week, I had talked about um, knowledge and how many of us know things but are not really willing to be transformed by the knowledge that we have. Many of us listen to podcasts just like this one of mine. We listen to a lot of music, we listen to TED Talks, we listen to people rambling on YouTube. Sometimes we go ahead and log on to TikTok and listen to people giving their own perspectives on life issues, but do we really take the time to sit with ourselves down and reflect on the things that we listen to, or do we just listen for the fun of it? Well, this week I'm going to be continuing with my series on the transformative power of knowledge, and specifically this week I've wanted to delve a little bit into the area of mentorship because, as you all know, I'm very passionate about mentoring people who are younger than me. um, I came across a post on LinkedIn last week. It was of a young boy. I don't remember his name, but what I do remember is that he was imitating the famous Jeff Koinange, and he was very young. And there's a way in which he spoke that really, if you were probably in your kitchen doing something else and the TV was on, you'd have thought that she was JKL live, but he was just a young boy. And whoever had posted this video talked about mentorship, and then it got me thinking, do we really understand what it means to be a mentor, or do we just throw around this word for the fun of it? Many people in the corporate field or people who are more experienced in life believe that as they talk to inexperienced people, then they are mentoring them. And I was at that point a few years ago until I realized that mentorship is a journey, mentorship is a decision, and mentorship is so personal. Mentorship is not something that you just wake up and do for the fun of it, because mentorship causes you to have a relationship. Mentorship causes you to have a bond. Mentorship is not just mechanical. It's not a situation where you're busy talking to people and ordering them around. Mentorship, in its very essence, is founded on mantles, the mantles that we pass on from one area to the next, from one I would say generation to the next. Mentorship involves a whole being transferring knowledge to another whole being. It's not that the one that is being given this information is necessarily lacking in so much, but it's that they probably need guidance, they probably need encouragement, they probably just need a little nudge or a little advocacy for themselves. Mentorship is not just about talking at people. Mentorship demands that we have a relationship either by the person who's mentoring or by the person who's receiving this mentorship. So, based off of that, I went ahead to look at some famous mentor mentee relationships because I really wanted to understand what is it that I am doing, even as a leader. There are people who might question the idea of leadership in times like this when the digital space has erupted. And I'm beginning to realize that if you don't really understand what you're talking about, then you'll just be rambling. Then you'll become a hashtag that will soon die down. So, a relationship that has really fascinated me is drawn from one of my closest friends. He's forever talking about philosophy, and he knows a wide array of knowledge. It helps him in his own way. um, but in my interactions with him, he has constantly been speaking about two people that I really had to go ahead and research. So if I pronounce these names wrong, forgive me. I'm merely just a scientist. Like if you were to talk to me about Newton or or any of the Germans who discovered very many things in the past, I'd be very comfortable. But in terms of philosophy, I'm very new to the game. So I went ahead and found a relationship that I think would do as well. It's between Socrates and Plato. So these are two philosophers who have contributed to most of the philosophical laws or um, spaces in which we operate to this day and age. And the first thing when you Google is that this is literally the statement that you find. Socrates and Plato had a profound teacher student relationship. Socrates, an older Athenian philosopher, was Plato's mentor, and Plato, a young man from a wealthy family, became Socrates' most famous student. Plato's writings are the primary source of information about Socrates, and he often used him as a character to express his own philosophical ideas. This means that much of what is known about Socrates actually comes from Plato's dialogues. Um, this actually got me thinking because it's interesting to note that this is when we talk about a mentor versus mentee, this is literally a teacher versus student. So it is somebody who has a lot of experience working with somebody who is a little bit inexperienced but has the potential to become more. And most of what Plato said, he was simply echoing or rather transforming what he had been taught and now writing it. If you look at history, it's written and it's confirmed that Socrates didn't really write that much. But through Plato's writings, then we are able to understand Socrates in a deeper perspective. And as I was thinking about this and as I was preparing for this week's podcast, it struck me as profound that the student would echo what the teacher was saying. And then it begs the question, as a mentor, everything that you have taught your mentees, will they echo them either through their behavior, through their speech, or through how they conduct themselves? Is it something that can be echoed? If you know me, well, if you've been following this podcast for a while, you know that I am Christian. So whatever it is that I talk about, I always go back to the Bible because I believe it's kind of where the buck stops. So if you look at Peter and Paul, I'm going to single these two people out, okay, plus John. If you look at Peter, John, and Paul, everything that they write, everything that they stand for, everything that they are, literally goes back to Jesus Christ. Peter walked with Christ from the time when he was a fisherman all the way until he became one of the greatest apostles to ever live. John, in his writings, because he is called the beloved, he had sat with Jesus Christ for a while. So even as you're reading the book of John and as you're reading the books of First John, Second John, Third John, you actually see the life of Jesus Christ working through John. If you read throughout throughout the New Testament, as Paul is preaching to different areas, you can see him echo the life that Jesus lived. There's a verse that strikes me every time I'm speaking on mentorship. Paul writes, I forget where, but Paul writes and he says, I've become all things to all men that I may win some over. It's not necessarily that Paul stopped being a Gentile. It's that Paul allowed himself to look at the culture and used the cultures in which he lived through, and he used Jesus's life to speak to them, reaching into that culture. So the question I would probably ask mentors is, can your mentees or your students echo the life that you live? I've done a lot of research on mentorship because I don't want to just be speaking. Um, Allow me to read something that I came across. Um, the need for a mentor. Now, the importance of having a good mentor cannot be overstated. A good mentor will inspire you, they'll push you to break barriers, they develop you, they'll expand your perception, and most importantly, a good mentor does not judge. They offer a safe space to learn, and in the corporate environment, mentoring improves employee engagement and retention rates. Um, I think this is very, very key when you look at it from the broader perspective, because if you remember, well, in my first episode, I talked about a mentor being able to bring out your best qualities through a life that has already been experienced. Most mentors have actually experienced the things that they talk to their students about. They don't just talk. I'm going to repeat that. Most mentors have experienced everything that they talk about. They don't just talk. Now, as you're making the decision to be a mentor, you need to ask yourself some fundamental questions. I think amongst them would be, are you willing to lay your life down perhaps as a blueprint? Because mentorship is a responsibility. As a mentor, you will literally be responsible for some of the actions that your students take, because they're going to say, well, I saw so and so doing this, so why can't I do it? As much as we're living in a world where everybody wants to do what they want, at the core of it all, we've seen people excel in certain fields, and whether we want to admit it or not, we want to become like them. Ralph Waldo said this: our chief want in life is somebody who will make us do what we can, or do what we want. In each and every person, there is a need to excel. I don't think people wake up in the morning and choose not to excel. Even when you hit rock bottom, there's always an innate desire to excel. And there is an idea of excellence that is within each and every person that we have already seen that we want to get to. So as a student, we have idealized some things, which is why when Plato sits down to write about the things he's been learning from Socrates, he learned so much that he actually wanted to become like Socrates or be better. So as much as we may not want to admit it as students, there are things that we have seen in people that we want to become, hence the quest for having a mentor. And for mentors, even as we make the decision to lead people or to guide them or to champion them or to bring them out of their shells, we need to understand that there is a responsibility that sticks with us. The buck literally stops with us. As a leader, final decisions are made by you, so that when you rubber stamp something, people can get behind you and say, yes, so and so said this. So as a mentor, you need to ask yourself, are you willing to bear that responsibility even when your decision is wrong? Because not everything that we do is the right thing. Some decisions are wrong. Some actions that we take are wrong. But the fact that we can bear responsibility, that is what separates us from being leaders versus being normal people. Normal people will just wake up and do things, but leaders understand that even as they are leading people, when push comes to shove, they're able to take in that responsibility. Last week I talked about you know better, so why don't you do better? The action of doing better as a mentor means that you accept the consequences. Many of us love to make choices, but we're not really ready for consequences. And I think if you ask me, that is the difference between, again, a leader versus a follower. I've kept saying that leadership is not an achievement, and I'll probably repeat it. It's not an achievement, it actually is a responsibility. And more so, as a mentor, being in that position demands that you have a relationship with people. In this day and age, we are not aching for more people to tell us what to do. In this day and age, we are not aching for more people to order us around. In fact, the main reason why we have such a huge gap between the older generation versus the younger, in this case, I'm going to use baby boomers and Generation X versus millennials, Generation Z, and Generation Alpha. The reason why we have such a huge gap is because nobody actually wants to sit down and listen. The older ones want to say. The younger ones want to reply. So now we get caught up in all of the emotions that come from all the talking. But at the end of the day, all of us have the responsibility to have a relationship with each other. All of us have the responsibility to allow ourselves to accept that there is a failure somewhere. As a millennial, I have been in positions where I have had to do as I'm told. Is it something I enjoyed? No. I felt like I was crawling out of my skin because I just didn't understand why won't you just allow me to do what I want? Why do I have to sit down and listen? But now that I'm older, I see some of the point of doing as I'm told, because it saved me a lot of wrong choices. There's a discomfort that comes with listening. There's a discomfort that comes with bearing responsibility, and there's a discomfort that comes with having a relationship. For those who are listening who are in various relationships, I'm going to take romantic ones because other ones are easier to navigate. Well, I'm going to take romantic and friendship. For you to be able to maintain either a romantic relationship or a friendship, you actually have to let your guard down. That means you have to put your pride aside if you're ever going to learn anything. If you don't want to learn anything, then you'll just keep making the same mistakes or making more mistakes, and it's going to take you a longer time to get to where you're going. But the moment you sit down and listen to somebody else's perspective, you realize that you stop yourself from so much harm. I was listening to a leader a month ago, and he said something interesting. He said that the greatest leaders have learned how to sit down with people they completely disagree with, share a meal, engage in small talk, and find an opening that they can negotiate and come out with a win-win prospect. Many of us want to win without relationships. But how will you win without a relationship? Aren't you just going to be repeating the same mistakes that have been there all along? How are you going to win without listening? Aren't you going to be repeating the same things that have been going on all along? Mentorship and the idea of being led means that you have to let go of your will just a little bit. There's usually the bigger picture that we don't see. See, at the end of the day, the enemy is not each other. The enemy is actually things like poverty, or things like redundancy, things like immorality. Like those are really the things we're against. So the relationships between mentors and mentees, in my opinion, they begin with us letting our guard down just a little bit. Not everybody is going to hurt you, and not everybody is going to praise you, but you'll never know if you don't let go of your pride. I'm gonna end by saying this. To those of us who really, really want to become mentors, sit down and actually identify someone. Learn them, understand them before you approach them. To those of us who think that we don't require mentorship and think that we can make it on our own, this is actually a challenge. Go and study the mistakes of the person that you desire to become, and then find somebody that you can reach who can walk with you that journey. We can't do any of these things by ourselves. We actually need each other. The call to mentorship is one that is demanding of a relationship. And I don't think anything can be achieved in leadership if there is no idea of a relationship. I've been your host, Nachasa Kimberly, and this is the Legacy Table.